Hello everyone, welcome back to Royal Grown Radio, a living conversation. Once again, I am Michael Beck, joined as always by my ever fabulous co-host, Rick Elliott.
Why, thank you.
And today we're joined by another special guest who is someone I've crossed paths with, who's been around the Royal Gold Circle for a really long time. We were just trying to pin down when we first met, and it goes way, way back, but
Too far back to remember.
too far back to remember. But I ended up coming out and visiting the farm on a grow-off farm tour in 2018, about 4 years ago now, and was blown away by the farm. And you know, we talked on the phone a time or two trying to set up the visit, and somehow randomly came back together this year chatting on Instagram, and I'm really stoked to have you. Welcome everyone, Mr. Jeff Green from Little Hill Cultivators.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks for coming.
So we go way back. We were kind of touching on this. You've got deep ties to the original Royal Gold days. We're one of the early customers using Royal Gold, working presumably on some of the R&D in the early days, running some of the products.
I did get a couple of bags of Royal Gold soil in all white bags, no label.
Yeah.
Ran some early Tupper.
Yeah, during the R&D days.
Yeah, the first bag of Royal Gold I bought was in '07 out of Berkeley, from a hydro store that across from Berkeley Indoor. It's not there. I think it was called Secret Garden or something like that.
Yeah, Berkeley's Secret Garden.
Is it still there? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, they didn't last too long, but I had been looking to make the switch from soil to cocoa, and man, I mean, I didn't know anybody back then, and look how far this has all come.
Right?
Absolutely.
So let's rewind back a little further. Like, where are you from? Where did you start, and how'd you end up here in California?
Okay, so I grew up in El Cerrito, right in between Berkeley and Richmond in the East Bay.
Oh, cool.
Little Hill Cultivators. Little Hill is El Cerrito. El Cerrito in Spanish is Little Hill. That's where I got the name from. And I just started growing in college. I couldn't afford to smoke the weed. And me and my roommate just kind of stumbled across some stuff to guide us along, and I totally nerded out on it. And 4 years later, that's basically my most marketable skill after college is growing weed.
I love it.
And by the end of college, I was renting a house from my buddy, living alone, growing in the basement. That's what I started growing in, basement mix. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, that was the simple life, man.
Yeah.
Those were the good days when you got good money, you could grow a few lights in a basement.
You could afford to learn.
You could afford to make mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just kind of like what I was into. You know, I was working jobs. Came across a book called Cash Crop by Ray Raphael, who's a Humboldt historian. He's written a lot of books on the North Coast, and I read the book. It was like a history of sort of the boom and bust economy of the North Coast, but mainly focusing, you know, the last half of the book is all about the weed industry. It was written in the 80s though. So he didn't see this medical thing coming and this huge boom. He thought it was going to bust again. But like just the people he interviewed for the book, and it just seemed like, you know, this was the place to be if I'm going to do this. And, you know.
When you say the last half of the book was on the weed industry, I'm assuming the first half of the book was more into logging, fishing, mining,
logging,
that kind of
fishing,
thing.
tan barking, even moonshining.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a thing as well, on the coast as well in the hills.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Not I.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. And really, really cool book. Interviews a lot of people in it, from teachers back to the landers, DEA agent, sheriff, you know, the guy that runs the bar, old loggers, everybody. And he gets all their perspectives on what's happening with this weed industry. And keep in mind, this is like mid-'80s.
Like before or right around Green Sweep then?
Yeah, that was never mentioned in it.
So it must
but the
have been.
helicopters were.
Right, okay.
And
So this is right after the Time magazine piece, probably, because I think that was kind of the thing that brought everything onto the cover of America, that this was even happening here.
right. Right. So I don't know. I read it and just like, this sounds awesome. This is where I want to be. This is the epicenter of pot and growing pot, and that's what I'm into. And if you want to be an actor, you move to LA. If you want to grow weed, move to Humboldt.
Well
Truth.
said. Well said.
Yeah. Wow. So you're reading about this boom and bust economy, and I'm really fascinated by this book. What was the
It's
title?
called Cash Crop.
Cash Crop by Ray
Raphael.
I'm
Yeah.
mental note, and luckily I can listen back for this. Yeah. So you're reading this and you're like, they're growing weed like that up there. I'm heading up to the hills.
Right. And this is like, I don't know, 05 maybe. And
Okay.
I've already been growing for a few years. And I'm seeing things on the internet, and I'm hearing things from friends. Like, I have a friend working on a farm not far from where my farm is now, actually. And so I'm just like kind of like hearing about what's going on, especially with outdoor, because I was all indoor at the time. And outdoor is really where I wanted to be, just because it just sounds like a better deal.
It's enticing.
It is. And, I got a job on that farm, went up there trimming just to scout it out and see what was happening. It's like, are they really getting away with this? And they were. And the next year I moved to Willits in Mendocino, and kind of was still growing indoors, met some people, just slowly started meeting people, and actually got a teaching credential at the time because I hadn't gone full-time pot grower yet, and finished that credential program, promptly quit teaching forever, and went full-time pot grower, and some of the people I met snatched me up and offered me a job really quick once that happened.
It was really interesting in the kind of mid and early 2000s, even, to late 2000s, how a lot of the growers up here were eager to find young, somewhat experienced talent to come run the farms and help work on the farms as things continued to scale up. That's when I arrived here too, as early 2000s, and it was like you could go to work on one farm, decide you didn't like it, leave and go find another job within a couple of hours, if you had any experience.
Yeah, and I think on top of having the actual knowledge and experience in cannabis, finding people that were responsible and punctual and all those things as well. That was always somewhat difficulty in finding help around here, especially with the industry and how easy it was for people to get jobs. You could totally be a flake and know that you'll just go next door and get hired if you get fired from this gig. So,
yeah, good help's hard to find, and the people that kind of had their eyes open when they saw that, and I've done it myself since then, where I have my eye on somebody, and I know as soon as they lose their lease or something happens, I got a job for you.
Yeah, you've got talent.
You
you've
snatch
got
them
skill.
up quick.
Yeah,
and you put them on and you treat them right. And ideally, you want the type of people that are going to outgrow you.
Yes.
They're gonna move on, and you're not going to be able to pay them what they're worth anymore after a couple of years, and they're going to go on and do bigger and better things. And now you got yourself an ally and a friend, hopefully in the industry, that's doing their own thing, and you need to train up the next guy, or you can just keep the guy who just kind of gets by barely, but I don't know, that just never worked for me. I want the guy that's just gonna, outgrow me, learn everything he can, and go on, and start hustling himself. And, that's the kind of people I want working for me. And
somebody who's independent that you don't have to carry.
right.
And that's something all of us who have run ganja farms have experienced, is the guy who's there and eager but can't do anything on their own. It's constant supervision and retraining, and that's a big challenge. So when you find people that are, free thinking, intelligent, motivated, and they're like, oh, well, I just stripped all these plants and staked them all up, and what's next?
Right.
You're like, wow,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so you're using your teacher certificate just in a different way now.
Yeah, pretty much. Teaching's a lot of it. That's good, just good leadership and management of people. Is you got to show them what you want and what your expectations are, and I mean that is just teaching. It's
That's the
coaching,
hardest
it's
part.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, the plants are actually relatively easy to manage when in comparison to humans.
Compared to humans, for sure.
Yeah, after your farm grows and you get to that size, and all you do is dream about the small couple lighter or the 2,000 square foot backyard patch, because it requires no other humans but yourself.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you and your plants in a happy place.
Yeah, I had that dream, and then I realized, wait, that's a lot of work for one person.
And then you scale back up again.
Or yeah, it's like, so either I scale up and hire somebody, or scale back down again. So
Yeah.
that's the conundrum. So now, Little Hill Cultivators, you're out in kind of southwestern Trinity County.
Southern Trinity, yeah. I just call it Southern Trinity. It's a big place, and
But you're like really near the center of what we consider the Emerald Triangle down there.
yeah, it's not far out of Garberville. It's not far from Mendocino, the county line to the south. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's
Not terribly far from Hayfork.
not too far from Hayfork. Yeah, it's about same distance. Hayfork to Garberville. I'm about the same distance away from both.
Yeah.
It's out there, for sure.
It's gorgeous.
I'm not going to say where I'm at, but nobody's ever heard of it, usually when I mention.
Right, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
So as somebody who does farm tours all the time, traveled around, looked at properties, bought properties, have been, in and out of the industry and around Humboldt County for 20 years, I had never been to your little neck of the woods until I came out for the farm visit. And about 45 minutes away, I was like, what the hell? I am deep in the cut after living and working in Honeydew and Neyland and deep cut places. I was like, whoa, I'm 45 minutes outside Alder Point at this point.
Right.
And for those people who are even remotely familiar with the Emerald Triangle, Humboldt Trinity, that's deep. It's deep, man. I mean, potholes bigger than your 250.
That's what's cool about the grow off competition too, is that it has brought us out and given us that opportunity to dig into the deeper pockets that we didn't even know existed in this tri-county area. I mean, we've all had friends and grower friends, and we've I feel like we thought we were just about everywhere within these three counties until we started getting involved with the grow off competition and getting those opportunities to do farm visits. And it really is amazing how deep the backcountry is, especially where you're talking about where the three counties collide. I mean, it's amazing out there. It's a whole different world.
Yeah, like the whole Island Mountain, all that range down like kind of below you there. But I was super amazed because a lot of the places I've been are hills, valleys, it's very steep. But like when you roll into that valley there, you've got like little mini peaks all around you, but you've got this beautiful, like kind of flat, almost plainish area.
Yeah, it's an unusual sort of feature especially for Trinity, but really for anywhere up here. And I mean, most of the larger valleys have been settled, like Hayfork or Covelo or these places, and then you have this little one sitting here. It's not that big, but it's just like this nice little mountain valley that's kind of been untouched for a long time. There's people there that's family there goes back to the first settlers, and they still live in that valley.
And that's amazing. And one thing that I think some of us newer school to Humboldt, sometimes forget is that those original settling families are still here. And when we talk about, the roots and being here a long time, they're like,
Hold my beer.
my great grandpa was here a long time before he settled. Like, come on, people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, those back areas and those properties throughout this area, I feel like lent so much to the cannabis and the passion behind growing the cannabis over the last 40 plus years, because most people are coming from places like the Bay Area or New York City or Michigan, finding themselves here in these pristine properties that are so magical in so many ways. And then the opportunity to have a life where you're here and you're growing this really powerful plant in a very powerful place in some powerful property surrounded by amazing people and the whole community and the whole aspect. I mean, I really feel like that's what's lent this push behind growing the cannabis like we have here for this many years, you know? I mean, I really feel like every day waking up for most people, you know, you go out into your garden and you feel like the most privileged, you know, person on earth that you get to do this day in and day out.
Absolutely. When I was still doing large plants outdoors, the best time of year is like late September in the morning with your cup of coffee, walking through your orchard. And I did it every year, and I knew how special it was, and I knew it wouldn't last. Walking through a greenhouse just isn't the same. It's great, but it's not the same. Walking through an orchard where the plants are towering above you, and maybe you get a little lost on which row you're in, and you know, you just get that feeling for a second of really being surrounded by these giant plants and all the potential they might have, and the dew's glistening on them. Super special feeling. I'm glad I got to experience it, and it'll probably never happen again.
Man, there was that special time, literally only in the last 10 years leading into today, where you're right. It's never going to happen again. It happens in, you know, lesser incarnations and newly emerging markets, but what we experienced was really special here in that time.